to you on YouTube, and we'll continue with this practice during COVID-19 until we can safely meet in person again. Although this meeting is taking place virtually, I want to acknowledge the land we are on as the traditional territory of First Nations peoples. In particular, we recognize and thank the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples for their stewardship of the lands over the millennia. We also recognize the contribution of the Métis, Inuit, and other Indigenous people, both in shaping and strengthening this region, and in particular our province and our country as a whole. At this time, I'm going to have a roll call. Vice Chair Eek is unable to join us today, so he will not be here. Member D'Angela.
Here.
Member Gale.
Here.
Member Gibson.
Here.
Member Lawson.
Present. Member
McKendrick.
Here.
Great. And I'd also like to welcome from the Solicitor General's office, Dwayne Sprague, who is sitting in our meeting again this week. Anybody have a conflict of interest today? Any declarations? Adoption of minutes. We have the minutes of the public board meeting held Thursday, April the 22nd, 2021, moved by members D'Angela and Gale. Are there any questions on those minutes? Anyone opposed? That's carried. Report from the chair. On April the 27th, Vice Chair Eek participated in the virtual joint region police facilities accommodations steering committee meeting. There is a full report on today's agenda that summarizes the project activities for the one district facility for the months of March and April 2021. The joint committee is scheduled to meet on May the 25th to continue its review of the overall project progress and completion of any deficiency work. The next monthly report to the board is anticipated to be issued in August of this year, which will be the final report closing out this great project. The Canadian Association of Police Governance hosts monthly webinars as part of its educational strategy to keep police boards and police executives across Canada apprised of issues currently impacting the policing community. This month's webinar is scheduled for May the 27th at 12 noon and will focus on privacy issues and technology in policing. It's open for all board members to attend, and details will be emailed closer to this event. The Ontario Association of Police Services Boards will be hosting its spring conference and annual general meeting virtually from May the 26th to the 28th of this year. The conference will feature guest speakers, educational sessions, board training, and provide important legislative updates. Board members have been pre-registered and connection details will be sent by email closer to the event date. And on June the 2nd, the Ontario Association of Police Services Boards will be holding their Zone 4 quarterly meeting. The meeting will be held from 9 a.m. to 11 a.m. By Zoom. And connection details have already been sent to all our board members. Our next meeting of this board will meet on Thursday, the June 24th at 9 a.m. That is the end of my report. Any questions on that? Seeing none, Chief.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, and good morning, board members. As the board is aware, the service was planning on holding an official grand opening at our new one district facility located at 198 Welland Avenue, St. Catharines. It was scheduled to take place on June 1st. As you recall, we had commenced operations from this facility on March 25th of this year. The grand opening was to be held in such a manner that was compliant with all of the COVID-19 restrictions of the day. Unfortunately, due to the most recent enactments of a declared provincial emergency and stay-at-home order, this event has been postponed until we have a better picture of what the future holds during these really unprecedented times. The service will work with stakeholders to establish a new date, and I'll keep the board apprised of details once they're finalized. I just wanted to provide an update with regards to the upcoming 2022 to 2025 NRPS strategic plan town hall sessions. The service and the board continue to process of developing the board's 2022 to 2025 strategic plan. The plan will serve as a blueprint for the board and the service to effectively and efficiently address the policing needs of our community as we move forward. As part of the development of the plan, The board and service will be hosting virtual town hall sessions for a variety of community stakeholders to provide input and comment. Each town hall session will focus on a particular stakeholder group. The town hall sessions are scheduled as follows: on June 3rd from 10 a.m. to 12 p.m., which will consist of a number of diversity and faith groups across the region. On June 3rd, from 1 until 3 p.m. will be elected officials. June 4th from 1 p.m. until 3 p.m. will be representatives of the various schools and school boards. June 9th from 1 p.m. until 3 p.m. will be first responders and downtown business associations. June 9th from 7 p.m. until 9 p.m. Will be a community town hall event. And June 10th from 1 p.m. until 3 p.m. will be a variety of social service agencies that the service interacts with on a pretty regular basis. Stakeholders will be provided with information on how to participate in the virtual town hall sessions with a panel of representatives from the board and service. Police Service Board Member Kevin Gibson will be representing the board. He'll be accompanied by Deputy Chief Forty, Deputy Chief Flynn, and myself to listen and address questions or concerns. Once we've collated all of the feedback from those sections, we'll use that information to assist in developing strategic priorities, targets, and measures and initiatives that will form the 2022 to 2025 strategic plan. Just with regards to our homicide and attempt homicide data to date, we did not have any new homicides or attempt homicides during the reporting period of April 21st to May 28th. And this year we are continuing to sit at 3 homicides. And comparatively in 2020, we had 5, 7 in 2019, 2 in 2018, and 3 in 2017. There were 2 fatal motor vehicle collisions during the month of April, and there was 1 life-threatening injury motor vehicle collision that also occurred in April. Year to date, we're sitting at 4 fatal collisions. Comparatively, for all of 2020, we had 16 in 2020, 13 in 2019, 13 in 2018, and 16 as well for both 2016 and 2017. So we're trending on par with in the past, and we'll obviously work to keep those numbers down as best we can. Some information on the fatal motor vehicle, 1 fatal motor vehicle collision that occurred on Monday, April 5th. Our officers responded to a report of a deceased male lying on the south side of Lakeshore Road near Stewart Road in Niagara-on-the-Lake. Investigation determined that a 40-year-old male pedestrian had been struck by a passing motor vehicle on Lakeshore Road the previous evening. The vehicle failed to remain at the scene of the collision. Further investigation located a suspect vehicle that was seized by investigators. The driver of the suspect motor vehicle was identified as a 54-year-old male who did not receive any physical injuries as a result of the collision. And that investigation remains ongoing by members of our collision reconstruction unit. On Saturday, April 24th, officers responded to a report of a collision involving a motorcycle and a motor vehicle at St. Paul Avenue and Ryle Street in the city of Niagara Falls. Investigation determined that a motorcycle was traveling on St. Paul Avenue when it collided with a car. 30-year-old male operator of the motorcycle sustained serious injury, was transported to hospital where he was later pronounced deceased. 29-year-old female driver of the motor vehicle was uninjured, and that investigation also remains ongoing by our collision reconstruction unit. On Sunday, April 4th, officers responded to a report of a life-threatening motor vehicle collision on Ontario Road at Alberta Street in Welland. Investigation revealed that a 28-year-old male had an altercation with other persons and as a result grabbed onto a passing pickup truck. The male fell to the ground and was run over by the pickup truck. The male was transported to hospital with life-threatening injuries. However, since his condition has been upgraded to non-life-threatening and he continues to recover. 69-year-old male driver of the pickup truck was not injured, and that investigation also continues. Some items in the news. In April of 2021, detectives with the One District Street Crime Unit, with the assistance of our Opioid Enforcement and Education Unit, commenced an investigation into the sale of fentanyl in St. Catharines. On April 20th, a 34-year-old St. Catharines male was arrested with the assistance of the Emergency Task Unit. Investigators executed a search warrant in the area of Niagara Street and North Street in the city of St. Catharines. And as a result, detectives seized crystal methamphetamine, cocaine, fentanyl, Dilaudid, oxycodone, and over $5,000 in currency, a handgun, a sawed-off shotgun, along with ammunition and a knife. Street value of the drugs is estimated over $10,000. The male is facing numerous drug and weapon-related charges. Just a great example of work done by our officers to get these deadly drugs and firearms off the streets of Niagara. And then just some information regarding some of the protests and demonstrations. Gatherings in St. Catharines and Niagara Falls have resulted in several charges, both under the criminal code as well as the Reopening Ontario Act. The gatherings were organized in response to recently implemented government restrictions to slow the spread of the COVID-19 virus. In connection with a gathering on April 17th in the city of Niagara Falls, a Lincoln male and a St. Catharines female were both charged criminally with common nuisance, endangering the lives or safety of the public. On May 1st, another gathering was held in St. Catharines with the same Lincoln male charged with common nuisance, endangering the lives or safety of the public. Additionally, a 37-year-old Niagara Falls man was charged with the same offense in relation to this same gathering. A week later, the same 37-year-old Niagara Falls male resident was again charged criminally for the same offense in relation to another gathering that occurred on May 8th in St. Catharines. In addition, as per the Reopening Ontario Act, a 43-year-old female from Aylmer, Ontario was charged in connection with the Niagara Falls gathering. And of course, we've worked very closely with our partners from the region of Niagara by law enforcement team, and there are a number of charges that have been laid by the by law enforcement team under the Reopening Ontario Act as well. On May the 6th at approximately 5:40 p.m., officers were called by members of the public regarding a suspicious car in St. Catharines. Officers attended and located the vehicle parked at the side of the road with the keys in the ignition. The male driver and female passenger were both asleep and exhibiting signs of drug use. An officer positioned their marked police cruiser behind the vehicle and attempted to speak to the driver. The driver spoke with the officer and provided a false name. As the officer was investigating, the driver suddenly reversed and struck the cruiser before fleeing the area at a high rate of speed. Officers quickly discontinued a pursuit of the vehicle out of concern for public safety. At approximately 6:24 p.m., a uniformed officer located the vehicle again in a parking lot. The male was seated in the driver's seat, and the female was still in the passenger seat. The officer parked their cruiser behind the vehicle, was suddenly reversed, striking the cruiser, and then repeatedly rammed the cruiser in an attempt to escape. When the vehicle became inoperable due to damage, the officer attempted to arrest the male driver. The driver refused to exit the car or turn the vehicle off. He continued to depress the accelerator, causing the tires to spin in place, creating a large smoke cloud and resulting in the vehicle catching on fire. The male refused to exit the car and had to be physically removed and arrested. No members of the public or officers were injured during this incident. Damage to the two cruisers is estimated at approximately $12,000, while the other vehicle was destroyed by the fire. 33-year-old male driver was transported to a local hospital for assessment. He was later released from medical care and transported to our central holding unit, where he now faces a total of 11 criminal charges, including dangerous operation of a motor vehicle, 2 counts, flight from police officer, 2 counts, fail to remain, 2 counts, obstruct peace officer, resist arrest, impaired operation of a motor vehicle, refuse breath sample, and fail to comply with the probation order. The female passenger was initially arrested and was later released unconditionally. On May 11th at approximately 5:50 a.m., an off-duty member of the service was reporting for duty at one district and observed a male walking near near North Street and Geneva Street, who appeared to be armed with a firearm. Responding officers quickly located and arrested the male, and officers located a shotgun on the ground in the area of where the male was located. Further investigation by the Real-Time Operations Center through the use of CCTV cameras confirmed that the male was previously carrying the same shotgun that was located. 33-year-old St. Catharines male is facing a total of 11 firearms-related offenses. And that concludes my report to the board. Just highlights some of the violent incidents that are occurring in our area, and really some great work by our officers in culmination with a number of our support services across the service. So thank you. If there's any questions, happy to answer them.
Great, thank you, Chief. Any questions to the Chief with regards to his report? Member D'Angelo?
Thank you, Chair. The only question I have is the one report where you mentioned the individual that rammed the cruiser with his vehicle and caused $12,000 damage. Is that something that we try to recover in terms of cost? I know that there was a long list of charges, but he damaged taxpayers' property. Is there any way for us to move forward to try to recover some of that? I know he may not have the funds at this time, but is that something that we do try to recover?
Chief?
It is something that we do try to recover through the court process. Not always successful in that, given some of the individuals that we often deal with, but it is something that we do pursue.
Thank you, Chief.
Thank you. Any further questions? Member Gale?
Hey, Chair, Chief, I only have one question about the last item. I was waiting for you to say it, and if you can't tell us, I understand, but why was the guy carrying the shotgun? Are you allowed to tell us?
I'm not sure if we were able to determine that specifically, but obviously it was pretty concerning to see somebody in downtown St. Catharines in a pretty busy part of the city actually carrying a shotgun.
Okay, when you said CCTV, I thought you were going to tie it into a comment that he had just done a crime with it or something like this, but okay, thanks very much.
Good, thank you. Any further questions? Seeing none, again, thanks, Chief. We do not have any presentations today. We'll move on to item 7, our consent agenda. We have items 7.1 through to 7.21. I'll have members Gale and Gibson move that this information be received to get it on the floor. Questions with regards to any of these consent items? Member D'Angelo.
Thank you. Excuse me. Thank you, Chair. Through you to the chief, the only question I have is the report regarding the overtime. I see that it's substantially down, which is great to see, and there were some reasons why. But I'm just wondering if the new hires that we have tried to implement, has that also mitigated overtime that's required for the service?
Chief?
Through you, Chair, thanks for the question. I'm going to turn it over to Laura. She's on the call. I think that that has had some impact, but not necessarily, we haven't realized the full impact of the new officers at this time because some of them are still in training positions. Some of them are have actually just finished their training at the police college, and another group is at the police college right now. But I'll turn it over to Laura for her analysis.
Laura?
Hi, good morning through the chair. Yeah, the chief and I were speaking about that, whether this trend is as a result of the 40 officers. What we're seeing is really the overtime is probably more indicative of the fact that we have available frontline staff from reductions to sick and vacation relief. So typically last year, pre-COVID pandemic, many people were off on vacation. And so what we're seeing is the trend is a reduction in replacement as a result of leaves, because most people are not taking a lot of leaves at this time of the year because of the closures and the restrictions. We're hopeful, though, that as the 40 officers come on, that will allow us to have more available officers, and therefore we should see the trend in overtime come down. But right now, what we're seeing in this particular quarter is more reduction in not requiring overtime for the relief of replacement for leaves.
Member D'Angelo?
No, that satisfies my answer, and it's because I know the new hires were one of the objectives was to reduce overtime or help mitigate that, and so we're in a good position if we're doing a good job of mitigating it now. And when those hires do come online out of training, then it's even better for us. So I'm glad to hear that. Thank you.
Great, thank you. Member Gibson.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the chief. The new building in St. Catharines online, working now very efficiently, I understand. How is that, or is it impacting prisoner retention in any way? Are we keeping more prisoners there, or is there the potential to do that? I'm just curious where that's sitting right now.
Chief?
So through you, Chair, we don't have prisoner handling services working out of that facility. So we have a central lockup facility that's located here in Niagara Falls. So that houses all of our prisoners across the region.
Okay, I'm just, so somebody gets arrested in the far reaches of West Lincoln. It's an hour to get to head office there in Niagara Falls. So I'm just, I realize the efficiency of a centralized booking, but I'm just curious whether we would be or could be looking at efficiencies in time management regarding movement of prisoners, St. Catharines to Niagara Falls, back and forth, and court and everything like that. So I'm just curious if we've looked at that. Obviously, when the design of the building came into play, I'm sure that was considered, but do we have any new stance on any of that?
Chief?
Through you, Chair. Obviously, when the scenario that you identified occur, it does present challenges for us in terms of officer availability in the area that they are normally assigned to. We do have the flexibility with our duty officers to redeploy officers to a particular area if in the event somebody's gone for an extended period of time. It's something that we manage and watch pretty closely. With prisoner handling, and obviously it represents probably the largest risk to the board and largest risk to the service. We had multiple lockup facilities previously before the new headquarters opened up here, and it was a concerted effort by the service and supported by the board of the day to go with a centralized lockup facility to try and mitigate the risks associated with having persons in custody. So we haven't seen any trends that would cause us to want to venture off from the path that we've gone down.
Okay, thank you. If I may, Chair, carry on with.
Yep. Go ahead.
Sorry.
Yeah, go ahead.
So,
Chair, I'm sorry, are we going to go back and forth? Because I have questions on both those items. Or do you want me to come back to them again? Or are you going to take an item and we all talk about it and then move on to another item?
Yeah, we should continue with the item that Kevin has brought forward. Kevin, what was the number of that? Sorry.
7.13.
773?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oops.
Well, he's talking about the police station with the cells, right? That, Kevin, is that the number for that one, 7.3?
7.13 is the prisoner management report for the year.
Oh, 713. Sorry, I apologize.
Persons in custody, the bylaw and the numbers and stuff. And I'm just curious about if I may continue.
Yeah, are you still on?
You're on the same item, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
Good, thank you.
where was I? Yeah, so a street person is arrested in St. Catharines. They're taken to Niagara Falls. How they're released in the morning, or say it's just for intoxication or something like that. How are we getting those people back to St. Catharines?
Chief?
So through you, Mr. Chair, obviously not everybody that we take into custody is transported here to Niagara Falls. We do a lot of focus of undertakings with conditions, and they can be released by the officer at the scene where it's appropriate. Situations where it's not appropriate, they are transported here to Niagara Falls, and by and large, they're on their own to get to where they need to go. And in terms of, we afford them opportunities to call somebody to pick them up, call a cab, arrange for other public transit. There's bus routes on our street here, so they're on their own in that respect.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Okay. Item 7.13, Member Gale?
Yeah, thanks. Just for Kevin to know, this was a major discussion we had when this was being designed, and we brought it up, those factors. And Chief, I don't know if it was Jeff McGuire that was involved in those conversations. You were certainly a deputy chief at the time, but we brought it up saying the same thing. Somebody coming from Waynfleet on an impaired charge or whatever overnight, sorry for your luck, you have to make your own way home. And the arguments back to us was the cost of running having a jail in the St. Catharines station as well as Niagara Falls is phenomenal. It's just not having staff there. Then it's the security of it. We have interview rooms, Chief, correct me if I'm wrong, in St. Catharines, but that's as far as it goes. So the savings, as well as we looked at, do you keep the front desks open? You always have somebody there, but they said down the way you might shut the front doors at midnight through till 8 in the morning. These conversations came up. Some of the arguments to this, if somebody goes to the detention center, they don't, I know that's a bit closer to you, the detention center in Thorold, but they still have to make their way back from that. And it's certainly a deterrence, although you're not thinking of it when you're arrested, but to have to make your way back from Niagara Falls. So just to let you know, we had a major discussion on this, and the cost savings were phenomenal, let alone the security to the officers at the station. And Chief, if you have to go on further, but we didn't take this lightly when that station was designed.
Thank you.
If I could just add as well, sorry.
I'll go to the Chief and then Member Gibson. Chief?
Sorry, obviously, every circumstance is taken into consideration on the merits of the case itself, and there may be compassionate circumstances where we would obviously take those into consideration, and we would do our utmost to transport the person back to where they came from if they had no other means. We do have taxi vouchers as well as another means of trying to repatriate people back to where they came from. And again, we do our best and to take all of the concerns and factors into consideration.
Great, thank you. Member Gibson.
Yeah, I guess I may be overthinking it from my own experiences, but I just looking at potential liability to the service. Somebody's trying to make their way back to St. Catharines from headquarters there, and they get hit by a car, or hitchhiking, or doing something like that. We all know that the judicial process afterwards would take a strong look at that and go, well, you pick up a homeless person in St. Catharines with no means to, not a car, nothing like that, and they're moved, 15 kilometers down the road, and then the doors opened and they have to make their own way home. So I may be overthinking it, but there's certainly potential liabilities there in regards to, if somebody gets hurt or whatever. So that's all. I'm probably overthinking it, but that's I guess from my own experiences. Okay, thank you very much.
Good, thank you, Member Gibson. Member Gale.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm going back to item 7.4, the overtime. That's the only item I wanted to comment on. And through to Laura, if you don't mind, or through the chief to Laura. Laura, could this have also been because we had major investigations last year? Because I'm not as concerned about this year. It's good job for this year. But last year seemed very high compared to the years before. Did we have some major investigations? Could that have been why it was so high in last year's report?
Laura?
Through to the chair. Yeah, the good news about the overtime report is that 50% of the uniform overtime is from major investigations and not from meeting our minimums. So that's a good news. Last year, this year in major investigations, the service was investigating 2 homicides, some serious assaults, including weapons, instances related to the discharge of firearms, and on-scene investigation of a traffic fatality. Last year was higher, and this time last year, the service was involved in a number of special investigations like provincial investigations, as well as the bank robbery in St. Catharines, a homicide and an attempted murder investigation. So I think when you see a reduction in overtime, it really speaks to the fact that we have more staff available. It talks about the vacancy factor, but with respect to major investigations from last year to this year, it is down in the quarter, but it really depends on the activity in the quarter. So last year we just happened to have spent more on major investigations related to probably the bank robbery and some of the other instances. I hope that answers the question.
So thank you for that. And the chief can comment on my next comment. But when I was chair the last term, I remember Jeff McGuire saying to me, we could easily spend $1 million on a major investigation, certainly depending on the investigation, what's involved and things like this. So as soon as I saw a major investigation at that time, certainly you're not happy with the crime. But I just said, there's another $1 million. And that's what I looked at. That's why I asked Laura the question. If we didn't have any, that certainly cuts back the overtime on this. But Chief, I'll defer if you have any comments on that.
Chief?
Through you, Chair. Obviously, when we get into a major incident, they can be very costly. And I think there's a public expectation, community expectation that we will put all efforts into trying solving some of these really horrific, heinous crimes, and we do. And as the board is certainly aware, we've had a very, very high success rate with our homicide unit. Very, very few homicides go unsolved in this region, and that's again a tribute to the resources that we put into leaving no stone unturned.
Great, thank you, Chief. Further questions on 7.4 or 7.13 before I go to another item? Member McKendrick.
Thank you, Chair, and through you to the Chief. I'm just wondering, hearing and seeing that some of the reduction in overtime is due to reduced leaves and vacation time, and understandably, there's not so much motivation right now to take vacation due to options available to actually refresh and relax. I'm wondering if we foresee an influx when restrictions lift of individuals trying to take vacation and seeing a major increase in those leaves and vacations when the restrictions lift, and the possible impact on overtime at that time, and if we have any checks or balances to manage that and keep that balanced.
Chief?
Through you, Chair, thanks for the question. And the collective agreement really speaks quite strictly to this issue with regards to annual leave provisions. There's only a certain allotment of officers and civilian members that are permitted to be off at a given time. So while they may be deferring that time off now because it's not perhaps an enviable time to have off, there will soon be limited opportunities within the year for them to be able to switch it to another time within the year. So the first quarter of the year, typically, aside from the March break, we tend to not see a lot of, it's not considered prime time. So usually from the second right through to the fourth quarter is when we typically see most of our leave is used throughout the year.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. Any further questions on those two items? Okay, any further items? Okay, Member Lawson.
Thank you, Chair, through you to the Chief. For 7.7, the domestic family violence, there's been approximately a 7.5% increase in cases from 2019 to 2020, but a 27% increase in charges. So is this due to the type of violence or incidences, or is it more training or awareness?
Chief?
Through you, Chair. Probably a combination of a few things that are at play here. Obviously, there's been tremendous advocacy work that's been done by the various women's services agencies throughout Niagara. And I think their advocacy in reaching out to members within the community, their education efforts are playing a big factor in having those that are subject to physical abuse reporting those incidents, which has resulted in more charges. And again, it's a collaboration, I think, of a partnership that we enjoy with the women's shelters across the region, attributing to that increase in charges.
Member Lawson?
And just a follow-up question is, so from 2020 to the first quarter of 2021, is the trend of increased cases and subsequent charges continuing, or do you not have that information yet?
Chief?
Through you, Mr. Chair, yes, the trend for the first quarter of 2021 compared to the same quarter in 2020 has continued, and that's something that has been reported provincially as occurring really right across the province and across the country. The speculation around the pandemic being a factor for that occurring with partners together in the same residence for extended periods of time, not able to go to work, and with the lockdowns and whatnot, I think there's a belief that that has caused the trend to occur.
Member Lawson?
That's the end of my questions for that report, but I do have a question about another report.
Yep, go ahead. Oh, hold on. Anybody have any questions on 7.7? I apologize. Okay, Member Lawson, go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. Through you to the chief again. So 7.17 for traffic management. I'm happy to see that there's been an increase in the vehicles stopped. Is there any indication as to why there's been an increase in roadside tests and a significant increase in 3-day suspensions?
Chief?
So through you, Mr. Chair, there was a legislation change that was implemented I think it was in the latter part of 2019, which allowed for officers to have the ability to initiate a roadside breath screening device on an individual without necessarily having to suspect that their driving ability was impaired. So it's more of a random opportunity to determine whether or not somebody has been drinking. So that has resulted in greater tests, greater 3-day suspensions, and fortunately, it has not resulted in an increased number of arrests for impaired driving.
Member Lawson?
Thank you, Chief. That's all, Chair.
Okay, thank you. Any further items, members? Okay, no further items under the consent agenda. Oh, I apologize, Member McKendrick.
That's okay, thank you. And potentially through you, Chair, to the Chief, just looking at 7.21 and the Ministry of the Solicitor General looking for stakeholder and public engagement and input into proposed regulations under the Community Safety and Policing Act. I'm aware that we have this report and the links for providing comments and input, and I'm just looking for some clarity or direction on where public or stakeholders would find easy access to provide their comments and feedback. So just looking for any insight into that.
Chief?
I'm thinking that perhaps since we do have the benefit of having Mr. Dwayne Sprague, because this is a communication that came out from the ministry, it might be appropriate for him to address that.
Okay, Dwayne?
Thanks very much, Chief. Board Chair, through you, and good morning to the board members. Yes, the information, Member McKendrick, is available on what's called the Regulatory Registry website. It's a ministry website. I know it does close on June the 7th. However, if the members want access to the website, I haven't looked at it for a bit, but I can either make it easy for you and send you the website email address if that helps. But I know it is on the ministry's Regulatory Registry website, where that information, I know various stakeholders, whether it's the OACP or OAPSB, can respond to whichever areas that they want to respond to that coordinate obviously with their concerns. But that information is available on the ministry's Regulatory Registry website. If you like, I will send that link to Deb or however you like.
Yep, if you don't mind, Dwayne, send that to Deb and she'll distribute it amongst us and
Will do.
Anybody else that wants it. Okay. Member Kendrick. You're set?
No, here's my question. Thank you.
Okay, good. Thank you, Dwayne.
Yep.
Any further items? Seeing none, it is moved and seconded to receive. Anyone opposed? So item 7 is carried. Item 8 is new business. We have item 8.1, the proposed amendments to the board's procedural bylaw, moved by members Gibson and Lawson, that the board's procedural bylaw 365-2017 be repealed and replaced with bylaw number 391-2021 as appended to this report. And further, that the board chair and executive director be authorized to execute the required documentation. Any questions on this item? Seeing none, anyone opposed to this item? That item is carried. Item 8.2, proposed amendments to the board's administration limitations and guidelines of the special fund bylaw. This bylaw has been, this has been pulled at this time. It'll be reintroduced at our next meeting. Item 8.3, Special fund request, International Association of Women Police Annual Training Conference. Moved by members McKendrick, seconded by member D'Angela, that the board authorize a donation in the amount of $2,500 from the special fund to the International Association of Women Police, the IAWP, in support of their 2022 annual training conference. Any questions with regards to this item? Seeing none, anyone opposed? That item is carried. Is there any new business from any member? Member Gale.
Thank you, Chair. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
Okay, just to report, I had a call yesterday from the media regarding the conversation we had last meeting that's in the minutes about the area locations of sexual offenders. I said to him, I can't comment, but I know the report is coming next meeting. So I'm just saying that now because in case anybody's wondering, did we forget or whatever the case may be, the chief told me he'd have a report, correct me if I'm wrong, chief, for next meeting. And I see Dwayne is here. So Dwayne, would you have comments? Will you be at the next meeting? Because I turned to you to see if there's anything from the Solicitor General on this.
Dwayne?
Through the board chair, I'm not sure there'll be anything specific through the ministry. I'll look into it and certainly get back to the board, and Chief may have more to add. I know I did provide some information to the board through Deb, so I'll leave it at that for now.
Okay. I just wanted to put that out there, Chair. Thanks.
Thanks, Member Gale. Any other items of new business? Okay, seeing none. There are no in-camera reports. So before we adjourn, it's 9:48. We are going to adjourn this meeting and go into our confidential agenda. So it's 9:49. Make it 10 o'clock. Let's make it 10 o'clock. Make it easy. We'll come back at 10 for our next meeting. So at this point, this meeting is adjourned. And again, we thank Dwayne Sprague for attending, and we'll see everybody at 10. Thank you.